God, we thank you for the journey that we remember this week. The journey of Palm Sunday, the struggle of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the meal and the arrest on Thursday, the crucifixion of Friday, and the resurrection of Sunday. And we ask, Lord, that you would just draw us into that journey this week and draw us through the struggles, through death, and into life. In Jesus' name, amen. So, if you're someone who regularly comes to Palm Sunday, Passion Sunday, just a little bit of history. When I was a kid, it was always just Palm Sunday, because that was what it was. It was the day Jesus went into Jerusalem, and we sang happy songs, and everyone was happy, and we celebrated the King coming in. But at one point, the church sort of made an executive decision. They said, you know what, we have a lot of people coming and celebrating on Palm Sunday, and then they don't come during Holy Week, and the next thing they know, they come back on Easter Sunday and they celebrate, and they completely miss the whole suffering and cross. So what the church decided to do was to make it Passion Sunday, so that you'd start out with Palm Sunday being the celebration of the procession, and at the end of the service was supposed to be, and you'll notice even the readings, most of the readings for today focus on the struggle, focus on the suffering, even though it's Palm Sunday. So the whole point was, well, they're not going to come to church during Holy Week, so let's give them the cross on Sunday so that they won't miss it. But I still have trouble doing that because at this point, we often jump over some things in the process. That we jump over, how did he go from being celebrated on Sunday to being arrested on Thursday and dying on Friday? So what I decided to do today, instead of having the whole long Passion reading, is to just have the next little section after he gets into Jerusalem. So this is a continuation of our Palm Sunday processional reading. So where does he go when he comes into Jerusalem after having this parade, after having been proclaimed king? He goes to the temple. And in many ways, he goes to the temple not to go and sign autographs and give high fives. He goes to the temple with a whole different perspective. He goes to the temple to restore the purpose of the temple. He goes to the temple to remind them why they're there, because they've forgotten. He goes to remind them that the temple is to be a place for people from all over the world to connect with God. But somehow they've been getting in the way of that happening. It was supposed to be a place where people experienced healing. It was supposed to be a place where people could be freed to praise God. It was supposed to be a place that empowered the whole nation to go and transform the world and be fruitful. But somehow, that whole purpose of the temple had been lost. Or in many ways, it had been lost. So if you keep reading from where I finished reading the gospel reading for today, I'll give you my cliff notes of what happens in the next several verses. So they have just asked, now what gives you the authority to come in here and turn everything over? And we're in charge of this place, Jesus. You have no authority in this place. And my little cliff notes that come of what the next portion of Matthew says is basically Jesus says, yes, I do have authority. He uses parables, he uses pictures, but what he's saying basically is, you don't know who I am. This is my Father's house. I'm the son of the owner, and I'm here to give you a job review. And your job review is that you're failing in your job. And that if you keep on managing my Father's business the way you've been managing it, you're all going to be kicked out, and there's going to be management that's going to be put in place that will bear fruit, that will give access to people, that will glorify God and not just draw glory to themselves, who will help to remind the nation of Israel why we're here, to bear fruit, to bless the world. So that's his confrontation. He turns over the money changers' tables and chases them out and basically says, this is not what my Father's house is all about. So instead of a long sermon today, I want to just take some time to invite us to be thinking, why did Jesus come to be King of our lives? He came in many ways not just to give us high fives and sign autographs. He came because some of the things have gotten messed up in our priorities. Some of the things have gotten messed up in our ability to connect with God, to experience healing, to bear fruit, to bless our neighbor. And maybe it's time for us to take some time to pray this week about what tables Jesus needs to turn over in our lives, what things he needs to chase out of our lives, and where we just need to say, Jesus, I'm ready to give you authority. I'm ready to have you come in and do for me what needs to happen in my life. Because many of the things that were happening in the temple, it was supposed to be a place of prayer for all nations. But the way things were set up, it was basically a big marketplace that where the foreigners were supposed to have a place to pray. It was so chaotic, they had no peace to pray. So they set it up in such a way where a lot of people had no access to connect to God. A lot of people who were told basically, you're not welcome in the temple because you have health issues. You have problems. And so it was defined that, well, because you have a problem, God must not approve of you. So it became a barrier that kept people out. So basically, the blind and the lame wouldn't have been welcome in the temple because they would have been looked at as having been judged. You're blind and lame because you deserve it. You don't belong in the temple. And what does Jesus say? Does he kick them out? He brings them in there right in front of them and he heals them and says, this is what the temple's for. It's not to keep people out, but it's to help people to experience healing.